Yo, what is going on, everybody? It is Tyler here, bringing you some more Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 gameplay. We'll be having some ranked play mixed in here, along with my wrap-up of the Week 3 online qualifiers. That's right, the last online qualifiers of this season, man, as we head into Major 5 in Toronto this upcoming weekend. But yeah, we'll, like I said, have a couple of ranked play games mixed in. Probably not a whole lot of gameplay in this one, man. I'll be, showing the graphics of like my pick'em results and going over the bracket a little bit, looking at the standings and how things played out after this weekend, which things didn't play out exactly how I'd think. We'll throw the pick'ems up on the screen here in a sec. But yeah, I did pretty well with them this weekend. It was nice getting back on track as I struggled the first 2 weeks of this stage. As we only got 2 of the losers wrong. I wish I would have got more of the map counts correct on the ones I got right, but we had a few of them. But starting Friday, man, Florida 3-0 over London. I mean, that was pretty easy call. They body slammed them. That was a quick series. A big surprise here for me was Thieves losing to Rocker. I know that Thieves have been struggling this split for sure, but they'd only dropped 1 map to Rocker all season. I'm not sure if it was either 12-1 or 15-1 map count in this series this season heading into this matchup. Plus Rocker making the lineup change just a couple days before the match. So I definitely did not see this coming. I thought, it could be close with how Thieves have been struggling, but the fact that they only took 1 map to search and destroy is kind of wild to see, man. Like I said, after the change on the starting lineup for Rocker, and then they come in and 3-1 a team that they had only gotten 1 map against all season long. Very surprised to see it, man, but hey, it happened, man. Vegas was definitely banking on Rocker to lose both of their matchups this weekend, and the complete opposite happened. So yeah, putting Vegas in a tough spot there. To finish Friday out, we had New York. I had them 3-2 over Seattle. They ended up winning 3-1. Seattle continued to struggle, man. I thought, maybe they would get back on track a little bit after beating Boston the previous weekend, but they just don't look good, man, especially in search. They cannot get it done. They were up 5-2 in the search and destroy on a silo and ended up losing. I mean, Hydra's insane, dude. And he had a wild series, one of the best we've seen all season. He's breaking records, the most kills in a search and destroy in the CDL era. But yeah, man, New York's been looking really good. We'll talk about them a little bit more when we get to Sunday's matches. But for Saturday, unfortunately, I did not get to watch like I usually do. I usually literally I've watched like every match this whole season. But Saturday was my mother's birthday, so I was, priorities, whatnot. I was with her for most of the day, probably about 5 or 6 hours, and it was the middle of the day, so didn't really get to watch much. Not a big deal, of course. I love my mom. Had to spend time with her for her birthday. I did go back and rewatch the Optic series, of course, and then I watched like the flank and of course the breakdown and whatnot. So that way I could see, what was going on in those matches, so I could, get an understanding of how those series were going and whatnot. So Vegas, I had them 3-2 over Seattle, and once again Seattle loses 3-1. So we get the winner right there. Vegas, man, they continue to do what they can, what they have control of. They get the win to get their 10 points to try to close that gap with Rocker. But man, Rocker just keep clutching up. Optic, I had them 3-1 over Florida. They end up 3-0 them. This series was a lot closer than a 3-0 would suggest. The hard point was close, search was close, control was close. It was a very good series for it being a 3-0, but Optic, man, they clutch up, get the job done. And they finished 5-0 this split. That's 2 splits in a row finishing 5-0, first time it's ever happened in the CDL era. Then we move on, Toronto over LAG 3-0. That was an easy call. I applied my double points boost, get a nice +6 there. Not going to say too much. I mean, come on. LAG is just done for, man. Then we moved to the last match Saturday night. We had FaZe 3-2 over Boston. Boston ended up only taking the control over them. I thought they would take that first hard point, but they were unable to do so. And FaZe get the job done 3-1. So they look good, man. I think right now, obviously Optic, the best looking squad going into the major. Same with the last major as well. They just got to translate it to LAN, like I always say. But other than them, I think the top teams to watch in this major would be FaZe and Toronto, and they'll end up meeting in the winner's bracket, which we will go over the bracket a little bit towards the end. But yeah, moving to Sunday, we had Toronto 3-1 over Rocker. And I wasn't expecting Toronto to be out here trying to expand their map pool against Rocker. I mean, I kind of understand it. It's better competition than they saw the day before in LAG, but still. You want to be at your best form heading into the major, especially your home major, and testing the map pool. I mean, I just feel like it's, at this point, it just seems a little too late. If anything, do it in scrims, you know what I mean? Try different maps in scrims, not the actual match. But either way, Rocker, man, they clutch up. Went to round 11, map 5, and Rocker get the job done, man. There's a couple good maps out of Attach, so it's been nice to see him back in that starting lineup. You know, even though I don't want Rocker to do well, I do like seeing Attach play well. So, yeah, they clutch up, get the 3-2 victory over Toronto in the map 5. And, yeah, that's definitely not what Vegas wanted, man. I had Rocker losing both their matches this weekend, and instead they won both. So, puts Vegas in a hole, man. Then the next matchup, I'm not going to say too much. But LA Thieves, man, they do get back on track. And what better team to get back on track against than the London Royal Ravens? It's already said how bad LAG's been. London's been pretty much even worse. So, yeah, LAT 3-0. The hard point got a little hairy there at the end. LAT came out to a big lead. They were up, I think they were up like 100, 120 points or so after the first few hills. And it ended up getting close, but other than that, LAT definitely dominated the series. Nice to see them get a win. It's going to be weird, man. Seeing them and Seattle both starting losers is very, very odd. But then the last match Sunday. Let's talk about it, man. If you watched my video last week, you've seen that I had New York winning this matchup. But they made a change. They decided to throw in their substitute, Wardy, which... nothing against the guy or anything. I think he's a solid player. I've watched him a little bit in Challengers this year. But I don't understand this move at all. Unless there's something more to it than we know. Skies ended up sitting out. And Priesta was on the main AR. You put Kismet, moved from the SMG role to the flex role. Because Wardy is an SMG player. And from what they've said, they just wanted to give the guy a match. An online match in the league. So he can show what he's got. And granted, he played pretty solidly and whatnot, but it's just a weird move to make. I understand maybe if you do it earlier in the season randomly once or something, but we're at the end. It's time to like lock it in, you know what I mean? So with that being said, they made that change. So I also made a change, like I'd say in previous videos. Follow me on Twitter, so that way I update like if I change anything with my predictions and whatnot, and I changed it to take Boston 3-2. They end up winning 3-1, so we get the +4 with the double points. Didn't get the map count, but switching to Boston winning was the right move. New York still looked all right, but it was just a weird move, man. They dominated the search at least, but I still don't understand it, man. I talk about their inconsistencies, right? But they definitely seem to improve on that and have been more solid lately. So I just don't understand making this change, whether you want to give the guy a spotlight or not. It's like, man, if we're going into the final major of the season, then it's champs. That's it. You'd think once you're hitting your full form, you want to stay in that, right? Especially against a solid team like Boston, especially online, you know, the EQ Warriors. But, yeah, I won't go too much more into it. I think I've said enough on that situation. Either way, good weekend on the predictions, man. We get everything right except for the 2 Rocker wins. I had them losing both, and they win both. But either way, my best week of this stage. Definitely, overall for the stage, definitely my worst one yet. But either way, when we fill out the bracket, we can definitely make up some points if we nail that. So I'll be going over that in a different video in a couple of days. I'll probably get that out Wednesday since it starts Thursday, the major's starting. But yeah, we'll look at the standings and whatnot. So, of course, Optic number 1. They go 5-0 again. Then you got FaZe at 2 and Toronto at 3. So even with Toronto losing that last series, they still get the 3 spot, where New York was in the 3 spot, which is another reason why I don't understand the whole substitute thing. They could have locked in that 3 spot and possibly even moved into I don't think they would have moved into the 2 spot, but either way, they could have stayed at 3. And also, they could have even only dropped to 4 if they would have lost 3-2 instead of 3-1, because at that point it goes to the map count and the win percentages you see on the right side there, the standings. Had they won an extra map, even if they lost a series 3-2 instead of 3-1, they would have been 13-9 map count, and that would have had them staying in that 4 spot, and then that would have had Boston at 5, that would have had Boston at 6, because that would have gave them an extra loss, but with one less win than Rocker, they would have had a lower percentage. So it would have been New York against Rocker in round 1 of winners instead of Boston against Rocker. And then it would have been Ultra would have been against Breach, which I would have much rather preferred that. Either way, man, I think Vegas got screwed big time. Like, Rocker winning both matches was very unlikely, and it happened. New York doing what they did was very surprising. So it's just like so many things happened that Vegas kind of got screwed, and they end up pulling FaZe round 1. Vegas was looking at most likely the 6th spot, or possibly even 5. If New York didn't do that substitute and they just went on to win their match, they would have been the 3. And you would have seen Toronto at 4. And if Boston lost, they would have stayed down at 8. So they jump all the way from 8 up to 4. And then Florida drops from 7 to 8. Vegas drops from 6 to 7. So I think Vegas would have much rather played New York round 1 than FaZe. But either way, man, this is the cards they were dealt. We'll see what they can do to, try to secure champs. It's just very tough now. I'll throw the bracket up real quick. Like I said, I will go over my predictions for this and all the scenarios and whatnot for champs in Wednesday's video. But just like to briefly go over it, the winners will, of course, advance of these matches. The losers in these matches will drop down to like the same spot where they are in the bracket. So like, for example, Optic Florida, the loser there will drop down to play Thieves. The Breach and Rocker loser will drop down to play London, which kind of sucks because I wanted Boston to get double first rounded, and that's just not going to happen. And that's what Vegas needs, would be for whoever loses between Boston and Rocker to then go down to losers and lose. But that's not going to happen because they'll play London. And I'm sorry, but there's just no shot London makes a upset here. They got nothing to play for other than trying to play spoiler, which I don't care. they can't get it done. The loser of FaZe and Vegas will drop down to play Surge, which, that could be a solid matchup for either team, regardless of who loses. And then the loser of Toronto and New York end up dropping down to play LAG. So yeah, New York, man, they bottled it with the substitution thing. Because now you got to play Toronto in round 1 at their own home major in Toronto. That's just insane. You could have been playing against Vegas instead, but that's not the case. So the loser of Toronto and New York will drop down to play LAG. That should be an easy victory there. But yeah, I'll talk about a couple scenarios, but like I said, I will dive more into them in the next video. We'll throw up the overall standings for the season real quick. Of course, FaZe still up there in first, followed by Optic, Toronto, LA Thieves, then New York at 5, Boston 6, Seattle 7, Rocker 8, and Vegas at 9. Florida at 10. I did mention last time that a lot of things would need to go right, and they would have to win the major to make champs. But with Rocker winning both matches, they are now 70 points ahead of Florida. And Florida is no longer going to be able to make some miracle run to make champs. They are now eliminated. So with Vegas being 20 points behind now, I was banking on them only being 10 points behind or possibly even tied going in. So at this point, they have to outplace Rocker very well. Because I think at this point, the worst Rocker will get is top 8. And if they beat Boston round 1, which I think they will, then that's automatically puts them top 6, which would give them 20 points, and that'd put them at 200. Now, Seattle, I think that's the team that Vegas has to put their eyes on, because Seattle's starting in losers. That 190, that's 30 points ahead. Boston's also 30 points ahead, but like we say, with Boston and Rocker, whoever wins that matchup is going to get 20 points automatically for top 6, putting them at either 200 or 210 for Boston. And then whoever loses that will drop to losers and beat London. And then at that point, the worst they would get is 8th, which is 10 points, which would put Boston at 200 or Rocker at 190. So either way, whatever team loses there will go on to win and get at least top 8. So I think Seattle is the best bet for Vegas. And if Vegas goes on to lose against FaZe in round 1, which is more than likely if you ask me, then Vegas will be playing Seattle. And they would have to send Seattle home, of course, to keep their chances alive. Because if you get double first rounded or you don't win any matches at all at the major, then you just get no points. Top 12, nothing. So yeah, top 8, like I said, is 10. So they're going to have to bank on beating Seattle. Or who knows, they might upset FaZe round 1, but I don't think Legion has ever beat FaZe in the CDL era. So, and just the way that FaZe has been playing, I just don't think that it'll happen. Yeah, so Vegas is going to have to beat Seattle if they do lose that round 1 matchup. They drop down and play Seattle and loses round 1. They have to win that. And that would mean that Seattle get no points. They would stay at 190. And at that point, Vegas would be at least top 8, which is 10 points. That'd put them at 170. So that'd put them 20 points behind Seattle. So at that point, they would need to get another 20 points, which is top 4. Top 4 would get you 30 total. So that'd get you from 160 to 190. And at that point, I think it would come down to like a bunch of different tiebreakers, and I don't even know if Vegas even would own the tiebreaker over Seattle. So we'll dive more into that, of course, in the next video when I go over my bracket, and I'll dive into the different scenarios for seeding for champs. But just wanted to briefly touch on a couple things, basically on just, Vegas got screwed. Everything that could go wrong for them this weekend went wrong. It's all in their hands at this point. They just got to win as many matches as possible at the major and hope that Rocker does not go too far, or just as long as Seattle gets top 12, and then Vegas just has to try to get top 4, man. I mean, it's possible, but it is a very hard task to get. Like I said, I'll dive more into that stuff in the next video, most likely coming out on Wednesday. Yeah, so we'll go ahead and wrap things up there, man. I just wanted to, go over my pick 'em predictions, wrap up week 3, and so many different crazy things happened this weekend that I definitely didn't expect. I'm sure a lot of people didn't expect, like the New York substitute, and then Rocker winning both of their matches, especially right after making their lineup change. So yeah, Rocker's looking real good, man. They're back into like their major 2 form where they got top 3. So yeah, things are going to get spicy this weekend in Toronto, man. We will dive more into it on Wednesday, where I give you my entire bracket, pick 'em predictions, and we'll go over the rest of the scenarios and whatnot. But yeah, man, hope you guys enjoyed. Go ahead and slap that like button for me. Appreciate it a lot. And subscribe to the channel if you're new. Have a nice day. Peace.
They're rotating already.
Enemies inside the perimeter.
They don't know how to hold it though. We'll get them.
I got one flash on point.
Target area up. Move to the hard point.
Dead. Oh, left. Top circle. Dead. Turned on. He's ass.
Of course. Damn it. Another one over there,
I
boys.
can't peek him. Help me. Right side.
Oh, they read me. There's 3. Oh, one going maps.
Hard point compromised. Secure
There's
the
another
area.
one that hallway. Yep, nice.
One's gonna go top.
Dude, they just got wrecked.
Mission complete. Solid
That dude's
work.
on a 5-win streak rip.
I mean, how?
I mean,
I mean, that's just tragic.
Damn, close.
Shit, Tommy.
oh yeah.
Good work, everybody.
Stump, good shit with this objective again, bro.